All right, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Timothy Depp. I'm the current president of Greater Dayton area. I want to welcome you all here tonight to our action group meeting where we have a more in-depth talk of a subject, and tonight happens to be about the land bank. But before we get talking about the land bank, we have a couple announcements. I'll have Marshall talk about two, and then I'll be back on.
Good evening, everybody.
Turn on.
You turn it on.
I don't know.
Okay.
Alrighty, I can talk loud for a couple minutes. Welcome in, everybody. Glad you're here. We got a couple of announcements tonight. One of them is, I don't know if you saw Marcia Hudson out front. She's selling picnic tickets. I know July the 4th seems a long way away. Our picnic's going to be July the 3rd. And, but we've only got like 2 or 3 meetings before then. It's $5 a ticket, and the ticket is for a whole family. You, wife, spouse, kids, grandkids, bring the family. We will be at Indian Riffle Park, where we've been having it for the last couple of years on June. Right next to the playground, so bring the kids, you can watch the kids play on the stuff. It's $5 a ticket, and we ask you to bring a dish to share, whatever you want. Jeannie Rhea will be buying the hot dogs, hamburgers, buns, condiments, the drinks, and so if you want to bring a dish to share, we certainly would appreciate it. But get your tickets from Marcia. She will be around. If we have a break, she'll be out there, but see her. Also, we've got a great opportunity coming up May the 29th here in Ohio in Columbus. The OREA organization. We are a member of the umbrella group, the Ohio Real Estate Investors Organization. These are the people who help us with legislative events and processes and trying to get the legislation that will be beneficial for us. We are having a day at the Capitol for us to meet our legislators, our state legislators, the representatives and from the Senate. And it will be $35. That will be all your food, all day long, drinks, going over there. But we need you to sign up so we know how many people to get food for. So if you want to go, see me before you leave tonight so I can get your information and get you signed up for it. It's a great way for you to meet your local representative. We will have time that we're going to be having meetings with them personally. And so you can have a say on what's happening here in the state with your business, your properties, whatever. We don't do this very often. We haven't done it for several years. So don't let this opportunity get past you. We'll be over there from about 9 in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, May 29th.
Where do I register? How do I register?
You can register online at oreia.com, orea.com. You can register there, but also let me know, and so I can let them know for the food count. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Okay, a couple announcements. This Saturday is Sing at the Moraine Fishes, and it starts at, what, 9 o'clock? Janice?
Yes, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. Also, June 1st is Cash Flow, and it's at Janice's house? All right.
What?
Are you hosting Cash Flow too in June?
Yes, I am.
Wow, okay.
So come to my house and play cash flow.
Okay. It's a lot of world's on fun if you haven't been playing Cash Flow. All right, now, 2 weeks from now, I think it's 2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks from now, on June 5th, we're going to have a speaker here talking about the power of joint ventures. You should have all seen a flyer that's on your desk, on your chair, not your desk, but you want to take that home and be here for, because This business is not a sole business. You really actually need partners. You need money partners. You need, rehabbers. You need all kinds of people. But it'll be a good presentation, talk about joint ventures. Now, without further ado, we're going to have our presentation. We're going to have Susie Crabill and Susan Considine talk about the land bank. So let's give them a warm Greater Dayton Rio warm applause.
I'm sorry? Do you mind? Or, that's fine. We talked about it before, but. Auction.com.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's gonna be rude.
Okay.
So just everyone, hi, I'm Kate from Auction.com. This is my lovely associate, LaJean, but we actually have a pre-auction review coming up on the 29th. There's going to be a hard money lender there as well as a title agency, so you're more than welcome, and actually we prefer to come with all your questions so they can be answered. There's also going to be some properties that are going to be featured actually here in Greene County as well as Montgomery County as well. It's at the Dayton Board of Realtors, and if anyone would like a handout for it, just raise your hand and we can walk around. And, sorry, I'm running out of breath. If you'd like to kind of get set up with any newsletters that we have or, mail listings, just look for us in the back and you can sign a sheet with us and we can send you emails. So, thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Susie Crable. I'm from the Montgomery County Land Bank. I'm not sure I'm working, but I talk loud. I'm just curious in this room, how many people have heard of the land bank? Oh, a lot of, okay. We're still sort of new. Not every county has a land bank yet. Montgomery County was one of the first ones in the region that have a land bank, and quite frankly, the need in Montgomery County was the reason that the land bank was formed. The bubble burst and there was a lot of houses that were in need of some redirection. So, we're going to talk tonight about the mission of the land bank, the objectives, the approaches that we use, and then we're going to go over 4 different programs that we have. Some of our programs are ones that you can directly be involved with. Some of them are on the periphery, like the demolition program. You probably won't, as the public won't be involved in that, but you benefit from it because the demolitions make the remaining houses a little more valuable. The land bank's mission is to facilitate the reuse of distressed property. We're in the distressed real estate business. That's what we do. The nicer houses, the houses that everybody can buy and sell in the market, and the market takes care of that, and that's not the area we like to operate in. We take the properties that have sat vacant and abandoned for years sometimes. Nobody's paid any taxes on them, and they're often the blight of the neighborhood. And those are the properties that we typically deal in. If they're really nice properties, that's not our area. Our objectives are to restore market confidence. We want to stabilize the market and the values of, a lot of times if we take out the worst properties through demolition or so forth, we can bring the market up on the remaining houses, which is benefits the people who have investments in those neighborhoods. And when we do that, we encourage reinvestment in the houses that are there. A lot of times, I talk a lot about the demo program because that's the one I've been involved with a lot. And I see that we tear down a house that's been there literally have been houses that have been sat there for decades, vacant and abandoned, roof caving in, weeds growing up, and we take that one house down, and everybody on the street in the neighborhood, we're rock stars to them because they have been so sick of living next to this house and have had people in it, and now their house that next to that would look horrible, but now that one's gone, all of a sudden they're willing to paint, put new windows in, and trim the shrubs and mow the yard more than 3 times a year. And that sort of reinvestment is what is a result of the land bank's objectives. Along with that, we preserve the community wealth. sometimes we have structures, more commercial properties probably, that they have sat, they were one thing before, they've sat empty for a number of years, and now with the market, particularly in Dayton, that's doing a lot of resourceful things, they're finding reuse for those properties that maybe are a little bit out of the ordinary. It may not be a warehouse anymore, it might be lofts or something. And some of that reuse is innovative, and we like to see that, and we like to be a part of it. Along with what we do with the houses and the commercial properties and so forth, we like to sort of dovetail in with communities. We work very closely with the communities that we are a part of. We will go in and take the worst out, start rehabbing some of the others, and we work with the city or the community to bundle that with the streets get repaved, or the lighting gets improved, the curbs and gutters get redone. And all that together, when we work as a team, they're not, they aren't obligated to work with us, but we know that together we bring more to the table. And that's what we do about trying to bring the whole community up. Our business objective, we're funded through some of the TAC money from the county a little bit, but our programs that we run, we try to make them self-sustaining, meaning we charge a little bit for what we do in the hopes that at least our expenses are paid. We're a nonprofit organization. Anybody who's interested in numbers, here we go, fasten your seatbelt. 2010 census, there were about a little over 250,000 housing units in the county. 30,000 were unoccupied. 16,500 were available for rent or sale. And then there's 12,000 that were listed as other. And that's doesn't really fall in any category, which we can surmise that those are vacant and abandoned. Nobody's doing anything with them. And again, that's our market. When you consider that number of housing units and figure 2 1/3 people live in each house, because that's kind of the average, that computes to over 28,000 people would have been in those vacant and abandoned houses. There's that much housing stock there that no longer has anybody to live in. 28,000, just to kind of give you a scope of something to compare it to. You take Oakwood, Moraine, and West Carolina's population, that's how many people could fit in the vacant and abandoned houses that we had in 2010. That's a huge inventory of houses that no longer work. Nobody wants them. They're just sitting on the landscape as a blight. That was when the landscape, or when the land bank was created, soon after 2010, when the bubble burst and everybody was panicking on what to do. When we saw that many vacant houses, one of the first programs that the land bank responded with was the demolition program, and that addressed those vacant houses. As I mentioned, the community works closely with us, all the different communities in the county. We do a lot in the city of Dayton because 80% of the population is in the city of Dayton, but we do reach out to all the townships and municipalities. We want to work with everybody, and if there's an interest in the township or one of the smaller towns, we love working with them. If there's somebody who wants to work with us, we try to spread it around the county. As I mentioned before, the strategic planning, we don't want to continue to be reactive. Here's a fire over here, let's go put it out. The problem over there, let's go figure it out. We want to step back. We're at that point in our history that we can step back a little bit and say, we need plans. We need to be more proactive in the neighborhoods to apply our services and again work with communities to work with infrastructure, lighting, street paving, and a lot of times we work with the asset building of the neighborhoods. We're doing a lot where there are libraries being built over Montgomery County right now. Some of that stuff just dovetails into the neighborhoods we're working in, and when that asset is added to the neighborhood, the whole neighborhood is brought up in value. And we like to be a part of that and make sure that what someone else is doing and what we're doing complement each other. We acquire property when it's tax delinquent, vacant and abandoned. We acquire it through tax foreclosure or donation. Most of our properties are through tax foreclosure. It's about a year-long process to get a property that way, but taking it through tax foreclosure releases all the encumbrances. If the property is in bank foreclosure or is part of probate or has federal tax liens, there are a handful of ifs that stop us from taking it through tax foreclosure. But generally, we find a way to get the tax foreclosure accomplished. We do take donations, but we do not take donations unless we have an end user in mind. We get asked a lot about, I have a property I'd like to donate to you, and we don't, even though we're called the land bank, and you think we'd be able to just take deposits all day long, we're not holding, we don't hold real estate unless we have a use for it in the end. If it's a viable property that can be rehabbed, we might be interested in it. But as you can speculate, with that many vacant and abandoned houses in 2010, there's a lot more donation inventory than the land bank is able to take. We reposition the properties. Sue probably going to talk a lot more about that with some of the programs she has. When we take property, when we own a property, we make sure it has clean title. That's what the foreclosure process does. It eliminates the encumbrances. And if we accept the property for donation, we ask the donor to pay for the title work to see what encumbrances are on the title. And if there's old mortgage or something that exists, we ask the donor to clean that up before we can accept the property. There are all kinds of liabilities that come with properties, and we won't take it unless it's a clean title. Environmental issues are also something the land bank can help, particularly commercial properties. We have some special assistance with that. And then, like I said, we only take properties that we know what's going to happen with them in the disposition. We handle after the rehab's done, or we know what's going to happen with the property. We make sure it ends up in good hands. The leverage part of it, we work again with the neighborhood and so forth, but with investors also to make sure that what we're working in can be maximized with private investment. The land bank programs that Susan and I are going to talk about tonight are the demolition program, the tax foreclosure acquisition program, the DIY renovation, and our thriving neighborhoods program.
There it comes. I can't write that fast.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Demolition, tax foreclosure acquisition, DIY, and thriving neighborhoods. Sure. As I mentioned, the need for demolition is was the catalyst to get the land bank to exist. From 2013 to the end of this year, we will have demolished over 1,700 vacant and abandoned blighted properties in Montgomery County. About 80% of those are in the city of Dayton. The cost to demo that many houses was over $25 million, about $25.5 million. Some of that was from federal, some of it was from local money. Each house right now costs about $17,000 to tear down. We have in that cost acquisition, we have environmental survey work, we have environmental remediation. We define what needs to be remediated, and then we remediate it. Sometimes it's not much of anything. I think the most expensive one we've had to date is about $60,000. they had asbestos in the plaster, and it was a double. So that was our most expensive bill to date. But around $17,000 is what we spend on a demo right now.
I need to get, where's our computer at? I need to get into.
We have a fascinating video of the demolition, and it doesn't sound like much, but it's fascinating. There's something about watching demolition. I can spend way too much time on it. It's up there soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick recommendation.
They don't have Windows Media Player on this.
All right, well, I've sold it, and now I'm not going to be able to give it to you. But once we demolish the houses, there we go. Once we demolish the houses with the program that we're tearing down houses with, we're able to offer the vacant lot to the next door neighbor. If the neighbor qualifies, they can buy the vacant lot for $200. We don't want the vacant lot. We're delighted when we find somebody who wants it and can give it to them for $200. And it's theirs to do whatever they want with. If they want to put a garden on it, if they want to just have a play area for the kids, or just green grass, or if they want to put a garage or something on it. We don't care. As long as they're eligible, they can get it. If you aren't the next door neighbor, you're the neighbor across the street or the investor down the road or whatever, if you're eligible, meaning your taxes are paid, you don't have any open bankruptcies or anything like that, you don't have any code violations of the properties you own. If you want to buy the property, you pay fair market value, which honestly, most lots are $500 to $1,000. So if you wanted to accumulate some potential building lots in Dayton down the road, that might be something that would work out. Right now, I think we have about 1,100 properties that we've torn down in the last 4 years, and we probably have 800 lots left. So if you're interested, we got lots of lots. I want to talk next about the tax foreclosure acquisition program. We're pseudo-government, so of course we have to have an acronym. It's called the TFAP program. It is a program, maybe some of you have heard of lot links in Dayton. It's not dissimilar than that. We have a little different payment schedule and so forth. But it's an acquisition method when you find a property that is tax delinquent, vacant and abandoned. You can come to us and say, I'm interested in this property, and we can work through the process to get you to be the new owner. Now, sometimes it's just neighbors. Again, we may not have torn the house down next to you. There may have been a vacant lot that's been next to you for years, and you know the owner that used to take care of it is no longer around, and the kids don't want it, and it's vacant and abandoned, and nobody's taking care of it. You can come to us and say, I'd like to get the lot next to us, and for a couple $1,000s, we can foreclose on it. As I mentioned earlier, we just like to pay our cost, and a typical foreclosure is around $2,000, $1,500 to $2,500. So we're just breaking even on it, but it gets those vacant lots next to houses that have often become dumping grounds and areas where the neighbors change the oil in their car and things like that happen. It gets them into the responsible owner's hands, and that's what we want to work with. We also work with investors for tax foreclosure acquisition houses. This is a good example of one that is in Harrison Township. They probably spent $4,000 in acquisition of that one. We got it in their hands, they cleaned it up, and it's now a rental property for them. Now, they did all the rehab. Yeah,
I have a question about your vacant lots.
yes.
Are any of them buildable now at all
That's
with infill houses?
possibly. You would have to check with the zoning. quite honestly, for instance, in the city of Dayton, they're 30 feet wide. Will that allow an infill house by today's standards? I can't answer that. You have to talk to the zoning people to see if that would be allowed. I think most places it would accommodate infill, but definitely before you buy it, I would suggest you talk to the local zoning.
Do you have a list available that we could see where these 800 vacant lots are?
Yes, you can share that.
Okay.
Give you my card. And
Yeah.
you can get that later. For the TPAP houses, as I mentioned, this program, you have to find the vacant and abandoned properties. As I mentioned, you have to be, the first step in the process, we like to make sure that the applicant is eligible. And we do a lot of research on that before we even talk to you about what property you want to take. We like to make sure, we do make sure that you are current on all your taxes and all the properties that you own, and they are free of any zoning or maintenance violations, and have been for at least the last 2 years. You can have had a little problem in the past, but if it's beyond 2 years, then we just look back at the last 2 years.
One question on that. The nature of what a lot of the people in here do, the number of properties we have. A lot of very responsible people in here. A lot of people manage the properties very well, have very responsible property managers. But one thing that happens is that residents slack off or don't take care of something. We get a violation notice, and okay, Mr. Resident, take care of what you need to do. Either that or we have to clean it up for you. So realistically, there's a lot of people in here that would rule out them being able to take on some of these properties.
You can have a code violation, and when you have a violation, they give you 60 days, or 30, or 90, whatever days it is, depending on the violation in the municipality. If you get it taken care of in their period of time, that's cool. We're fine with that. It's
Okay.
when you have violations that are not taken care of, outstanding violations is maybe what we should call it.
So you're looking at somebody who has a track record of owning houses like the ones you're trying to resolve and not taking care of.
Right.
Okay.
We're fine. We understand that, the gutter fell off and the housing inspector found it before you did. Is how you respond to that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
As mentioned, you can't have any bankruptcies or foreclosures in the last 2 years. And we ask that you attend a home buyer success training with the homeownership of Greater Dayton. It's about an hour, one-on-one session with a homeownership center employee. And I think you guys will probably find that it's a little bit helpful, but it's probably more geared toward people who are one-offs buying these properties. They think, all right, I get a property for $5,000. This is great. I'm going to move into a house, and this is wonderful. This is my dream come true. And understand, these properties, you find them, we foreclose on them, and you get them. You've never been in them. We can't let you in them. We don't own them until the very end. So you're buying, as the old expression is, a pig in a poke. Now, if you have familiarity with the property, and you knew Mrs. Smith, it's a next door neighbor, and Mrs. Smith always took good care of it, and it hasn't been that long sitting there, and you have some familiarity, sometimes you do get a gold mine. But oftentimes, it's a property that had the pipes ripped out, the furnace has been off, the pipes probably froze before they were ripped out. You most certainly can plan on a furnace, kitchen, a bath, probably the roof. And do the math in your head. You guys know the numbers better than I do. That's well over $5,000 that you initially spent. And when you're someone who is, getting this house and you're really thinking of getting something great for $5,000, it's going to take a lot more money than that to make it livable. And that's why we sit down with them in the beginning to make sure they understand what the budget's going to look like to fix it. Because we give you 6 months to get the property in shape. If it's got a tarp on it, In 6 months, the tarp has to be gone. Has to have a roof back on. We want you to succeed, and we aren't doing any inspections on the inside to say, you need to fix that bathroom, because we haven't seen it. But from the outside, we have to see that improvements have been made. It's overgrown and the shrub, you can't even see the house because of the shrubs. Those have to be cleared out. If there's a hole in the roof, there better not be a hole in the roof in 6 months. It's just those things that we can look at and see that need to be fixed, that will have to be fixed within 6 months. And again, that takes resources, and it's not, everybody can do that. Yeah.
Ma'am, is there a way that we can look at the criteria?
Yeah, in the program documents.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's it's just like the DIY programs. We aren't telling you have to have granite countertops, but we are telling you it's not acceptable to have them on the roof. I think those are pretty reasonable guidelines. So the homeownership training part of it is just kind of enlightening for some people, because it's not this free house or a house for $5,000. There's a lot of things that go with it.
Can I have a place where y'all go meet or what matter?
When you apply for, come to us and say we want to be part of this program, we set up the meeting. It's one-on-one, and it's at your convenience. They're there from like 8 till 6 at night. Where? It's at our office downtown on 2nd Street. Not sure what happens here.
It's in blue lettering, so you can't read it.
After you go through the homeownership training, the next thing is you need to find a property. And again, sometimes you know that Mrs. Smith next door is no longer there, and the grandkids don't want the house, and it's tax delinquent, and you're familiar with the house, and it's pretty easy to find. But, can't see it on there, but it says gogetproperties.com, www.gogetproperties.com. And when you go on there, it will show you all the tax delinquent properties in the county outside the city of Dayton. The city of Dayton has lot links, and this is the similar program, but it's outside the city. There you can go to, let's say you want to find a place in Harrison Township. You can zoom into Harrison Township. It may say there's 150 properties in Harrison Township. You zoom into Gypsy Drive, they have 10 houses in that neighborhood. And it just, the closer you get to a specific area, it zeroes in on a house or lots. And it's all described on there. It's pretty easy to use. So that's how you discover a house for the TPAP program.
What's that name again?
GoGetProperties.com. You become eligible and you have to find an eligible property. You go to gogetproperties.com, and that is all the delinquent properties. However, if they are involved with bankruptcy, a probate case, or federal tax liens, we cannot foreclose on them. So some of those that you may find may not be eligible for us to foreclose on. Part of your responsibility is, once you find a house that you want to go after, is you have to contact DP&L, Vector, and whatever water company is involved, either the county or sometimes it's the city of Trotwood or whoever, and make sure the utilities are off. We would put that on you to make sure that you verify that the property is vacant and abandoned. Once you do that, you come in and fill out the paperwork, pay for the application for the property. It's up to $5,000. If it's a lot next to you, it's $2,000, and it's a gradient fee beyond that. We apply for the property to be foreclosed on, and the process will take anywhere from 9 to 18 months. Yes, that's a long time. And the house just sits there without any care during that time. So figure that into your cost, because a little bit of a leak in the roof now, a year and a half from now, is going to be a lot worse. So make good choices. This is my suggestion. Once it goes through foreclosure, the land bank takes ownership of it. Once we get ownership of it, we contact you and say, we have the property, we want to sign it over to you. We have you sign what's called a reverter deed. The reverter deed is a document that you sign, which you'll be the owner of the property, and it signs the property back to us. If you fail to do improvements in the first 6 months that we spell out in the contract that you need to do, all we have to do is record that deed and the property will come back to us. Please understand, we don't want the property. We want you to succeed. We want you to move this property forward. But it's the last case, or last possible thing we can do if somebody just walks away from the property. We want to make sure the properties that we touch move forward, are advanced. And if somebody gets in over their head and they just can't do anything about it and they walk away and move away and this property has not advanced, it is how we can get the property back. It's not what we want to do. We want you to succeed. But that is a strategy that we have to make sure the property is advanced. Yes?
How do you retire the reverter deed?
After a year, it goes away. How do we?
It goes away. It's shredded,
Yep.
it's returned to the owner,
We just shred it.
you shred it.
Or we can return it to whatever you want. We just won't, after that look back period, 6 months we look at it and we say, wait a minute, you aren't doing what you're supposed to do. After the second 6 months, if you haven't done anything, we will use the reverter deed. But if you have, or at any point when you have, we tear the deed up, whatever you want to do, we can send it to you.
Is it recorded? Is the new deed then recorded so
No.
that it's in the applicant's name?
Yes. We get it and give it to you, yes, it is recorded.
Okay.
It is yours.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you have signed the reverter deed
Okay.
that gives it back to us if you fail to perform.
So they showing that they making improvements on it, but it just ain't going in y'all time frame. Y'all still work with it?
We try very hard to work with everybody. If you're using good faith to get as much done as you can, we're not in a hurry to take it back. It's the last resort option when somebody walks away. Any other questions?
Thank you. Are all the old water bills and all of those things taken care of? And any mowing or things that the cities would charge to keep the lot up during that time? Are they wiped clean?
From the time up to when we acquire it, everything before that is wiped clean.
Okay.
Usually, there's just a month or so between when we acquire it and when we give it to you. That, particularly the mowing, that usually is not encumbered. We do have problems with the water bills. I will be honest. I wish everybody could appreciate, at the water department could appreciate that, what an encumbrance it is. And we work very hard to get them cleared. We're so much better at handling it than it used to be. But at the end of the day, the water departments do not want to just wipe the bills off. Yes.
So do you
So
then
who
become
pays that?
responsible for it then, when you get the property?
Are they then responsible? Yeah. Sure, go ahead and fill that one.
By statute, by Ohio Revised Code,
And the water stays with the house.
the water bills are supposed to be removed
Oh.
in the foreclosure process. As Susie says, that does not always happen, and we do have to, let's call it negotiate with the water department to get them removed. Right, to date, we've been able to get, we've been able to get them all off.
Yeah, what I said was, from the beginning of time to when we take ownership, we can get that huge tax bill written off.
And the water,
I'm sorry, the water bill.
the water.
That's what I was thinking. There's a period between when we take ownership and when you take ownership, and sometimes it's a month or two for whatever reason.
Well, that's normal.
The water bill still ticks on, and it's irritating to us, as you said, by statute, it shouldn't be there, but not everybody's on board with statute.
Yeah, so during that time, they'll charge, like, even if there's no service, they charge like a sewage bill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know this.
And a minimum water charge.
And a minimum, and sometimes a minimum, although that's not been consistent in my experience. And that period between the time that the land bank takes the deed and the deed is then transferred into the applicant's name, that can be, that can be a couple of months of, but it's usually, less than $50.
Can you get the water shut off so it's not pouring into the basement once you own it?
The water's shut off before we, there's no water service to the property to qualify to be into tax foreclosure. So the water service has already been shut off.
Let the water shut off.
I'm sorry?
With a little luck, there's no water pouring in.
I would hope that there should
They
be.
often remove the meters, that doesn't mean there's not water pouring into the building.
Well, that would be where I hope you've done due diligence on the property. If there's water gushing out of the basement windows, that's bad. Yeah, we've run into things like that.
You said it would take 1 to 2 months from the time that you guys acquire it, sometimes till
Not usually.
Not usually. Usually it's a matter of weeks.
matter.
Yeah, not usually.
What holds it up sometimes, like at the end of the year, the county is slammed. We do our part of it, get the deed signed and all that, and it sits at the recorder's office for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yeah, because everybody's trying to get their stuff done at the end of the year, and we don't have priority over anybody else. We just wait, so sometimes that's the slow part. Yeah.
You did say the taxes were wiped out, right? All the
Correct.
back taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
Taxes and any liens, like old bank liens and so forth, those are gone.
So, how is this program similar or different from Lutlands?
The lot links? One of the differences that I know of, and there's a lot of parallels, but one of the differences is lot links, you pay, I don't know, let's say $500 down, and then you pay a variable balance at the end, whatever the costs were. We set a fee of $2,000 to $5,000, depending on if it's a vacant lot next to you or if it's a house or lot construction. We give you a set price at the beginning, and you pay that price up front, and there's no other fees after that.
So, whatever your set price is, then there's no deposit you have to pay down?
You pay everything up front.
Oh, upfront. Okay.
There's no balance at the end of the process where we sort of settle up. Because you pay, with lot links, you pay a
Yeah.
small amount up front, and then you pay the bigger amount at the end. And sometimes it's a big amount, where we just take an average and have you pay that up front. That way you don't walk away from it, quite honestly. You want to have skin in the game.
And the entire process from your application to when you get the property for this one is how long?
It can be 9 months, it can be 18 months.
Oh,
It
so-
just depends on how long, how busy the prosecutor's office is, how busy the BOR, the process takes. It goes through, I think, 6 or 7 different county offices for us to do a BR of prosecutor, recorder. Huh? You have a slide on that? Prosecutor, recorder's office, auditor's office, treasurer's office, sheriff's department, and one more. I can't think of clerk reports. It touches every county office. Some are quicker at getting it through than others, and because of staffing and so forth. So we have when they're it's in their office, on somebody's desk, we don't have any control of that to make that happen. So that's why there's a big variable between 9 months and 18 months.
And when you put in for that property, at that time, you're assured that nobody else has also put in for that property, right?
I'm sorry, was that last part?
When you put in for that property, I can be assured that nobody else has put in for it as well.
Nobody else can put in it, but one thing that can always happen is anybody involved with the ownership gets service. They are served that the property is being foreclosed on. 98%, I made that up. A lot of the services are returned because Mrs. Smith is dead and her grandkids are nowhere to be found and all that. But if there's someone who still has an interest in the property and is interested in paying the taxes off, that can happen. And if that happens, it's no longer eligible. It's not tax delinquent anymore. So the property would be no longer eligible.
But you would find that out before I pay my $2,000.
You know, we have to start the process. If that happens, though, we keep $250 of it, and you get the rest of it back.
Okay.
Say the house burns down during the process. Same thing, we get money back, lost $250
Kind of
or?
a doomsday, orange. I don't want to.
There's a lot of arson in this area.
Got one details.
Things fall down. You have insurance on it?
Can't have insurance on it, don't own it.
Yes, it's nobody's, none of us own it. The only time that we would, let me back up. If that happens in the foreclosure process, we stop the foreclosure when that happens. In that case, you get everything back but the $250.
Okay.
If it happens when we own it, we would probably have insurance. I know we have insurance on it, but I don't know. God, we never have that problem. But during the period that we own it, which is a week or two to a couple months, we do have insurance on it. But it's not very valuable. No.
Right.
It's not like insured for finished value. It's insured as a vacant abandoned house. So, yeah. Hopefully that never happens.
Is there some type of purchase contract in place from the time that you take possession to the time you pass possession?
The only contract we have, or any documents that we have, are the application in the process for the program. There's never really a purchase agreement for this. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't do a lot of work in the Dayton market. I'm actually more in the Cincinnati or Butler County area. How do I find out if there's a land bank for some of those areas? A few other counties.
I know Hamilton County has one.
Hamilton County, I don't think that Butler County does, but I'm not sure.
How would I, who would I?
You can ask the Google machine.
Yeah.
Because the Google machine knows all. And if you Google Butler County, Ohio Land Bank,
Right.
if it pops up, they'll.
Right.
Cincinnati Port Authority runs the land bank down there, but I'm not really sure what it's called.
It's called the Hamilton County Land
Is
Bank.
that the same thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry.
Hamilton County absolutely has a land bank.
Okay. Thanks.
This is something we talked about already. After 6 months, we take a look at it. If it looks like any of those structures at the bottom, we're probably going to have a discussion, because that's not what it should look like. The trash and all the debris and overgrowth should be removed. Any broken doors and windows need to be replaced or repaired. The roof can't have the tarp on it there. That's a bad thing. The land bank, we always say, doesn't matter if it has a tarp, but it's a tarp in good shape. No, because all of our properties have tarps on them. So, this is an example
Awesome.
of what
Thank you.
some of them look like. And if the improvements don't occur, we will use the reverter deed to take it back. But this is the success stories that we normally have. We've never taken a property back. Some of them don't advance much. But the hole in the roof gets fixed and the things like that happen, and then we're fine with that. We aren't asking for a lot, but we're just asking it to be improved. To date, we've done 153 properties. 40% of them have been owner occupied. 60% have been investor owned, and most of them rent them for a while, and I think the market has caused them a lot to rent them and then sell them after a few years. So, are there any other questions about the demolition or the TFAP program?
So if you found one of those houses and you wanted it, and you seen that it was a problem with the roof, you couldn't, you say you can't do that, but you can't put a tarp over it and keep it from?
Not long term. I mean, certainly you can
I
do
mean,
that.
in between the time that you seen it and put in for y'all, to the time that you received it.
We can't do that because someone actually owns it beside me and you. The third party that owns it, you're trespassing on the property to put the tarp on. We can't allow, we can't authorize that. Anything else? I'll turn it over to Susan then. She'll talk about the DIY program.
How long has this TFAP been in place? You've done 153 properties over what period?
About 4 years.
4 years.
And I understand the first year and a half, there was 4 of us in the office. So we had a slow start, I was looking like that. So we ramped up the last couple of
And is that just for residential properties or is commercial property in?
Commercial properties is a whole different category, so no, this is just residential. Yes.
What if it goes through the whole process and then at the end, the person who initiated it no longer wanted the property?
The person initiated, you're obligated to take the property.
But what if they don't?
Once you sign the papers, you actually sign an affidavit that says, I looked over the rules, and someone has looked over the rules, and I accept the responsibilities of ownership, and when the land bank makes the property available to me, I will take ownership of it.
Are there circumstances where the person doesn't, or if something happens and they're unable to, what happens?
The one time we've ever had anybody have a legitimate reason for not wanting it was when he died. That was the one that we had to take it and figure out what to do. That's legit.
Will Susan be going over the auction and how that works?
There really is not an auction.
Okay, so when there's something on the land bank listed, people are putting bids in on it? What is
We
that?
call it, what, if I could just please ask you to wait, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay,
Okay, I'm
that's
gonna
what I was
explain all that, okay? So Susie has gone through and talked about the tax foreclosure acquisition program, which I call a reactive program, because the land bank is reacting to you, the applicant. The DIY renovation program is a proactive program. So you as the applicant in the first program, you're going out and finding the property. You're finding out if it's tax delinquent and vacant and abandoned and calling the utilities. And you're doing the assessment to say, from the outside, yeah, it looks like it's still viable, I can do something with this. In the DIY program, my team and I do that. We do the research, we call the utilities, we go by the property, we sometimes don't tell anybody, peek in the windows. We say, we look at the neighborhood, the same things that you would do, exactly the same things that you would do to determine whether or not this is a property that you feel like you could invest in. And once we determine that, and that it's a property that we think is viable and is qualified, is eligible to go through the foreclosure process, then we put it in and for foreclosure and do this program with it, which I'm gonna go into. I promise. It'll maybe sort of make sense. So this is what the foreclosure process happens. A lot of you probably already know this, but this are all the steps in the foreclosure process. We submit an affidavit to the treasurer delivers the case to the prosecutor's office files the case, and they do title work to identify whoever needs to be notified. Then it goes to a board of revisions. Then it goes, once it's out of the approved and adjudicated through the board of revisions, it goes to, where's the little pointer thing? Oh, fun. So once it goes to the board of revisions, so it's adjudicated there, then it goes to the auditor's office, the clerk of courts, the recorders, and the sheriff's office. And then we get the deed. We currently have 17 properties in the foreclosure process to go into this program. We are doing research on 10 properties. We did what I call property shopping today for about 3 hours-ish. And we looked at 20, 15, maybe 15 probably. And we got 5 that we're gonna submit for foreclosure, which is pretty good. Sometimes it's only like 10% or less. Or sometimes we go out and we look at 25 properties and we're not gonna submit any of them. They're not in good condition, or they're not in an area where we think we can sell them, or they look occupied, or whatever the reason may be. And the foreclosure process, like Susie says, this is a little out of date. They're coming through a little bit more quickly than this. This is the same process that Susie described, and they're taking 9 months to 18 months. We have had some take 2 years, but not lately. So this is again a description of the program. Tax delinquent, vacant, abandoned. We initiate tax foreclosure once we get the deed. So this is where the programs start to diverge. Once we get the deed, we do an inspection of it. We get a rekey, we do an inspection of it. Oftentimes, before we inspect it, we have to clean it out. Full of stuff. We clean up the landscaping, and then we do an inspection and say, okay, here are the things that must be done to this property to make it livable, to make it inhabitable. We are not looking for the Taj Mahal. We are looking for the level of finishes and the level of renovation that is in keeping with the neighborhood. Okay, so we're not going to require granite countertops or 30-year roofs, or we don't dictate materials. It's a checklist of things. You have to replace the roof. That roof is beyond its life. It needs new flooring. You want to put carpet in, you put carpet in. You want to put vinyl in, you put vinyl in. You want to refinish the hardwood floors, that's fine with us. We don't care. That's not a good way of saying it, because we do care, but we do not dictate what material you use. That's going to make more sense in a minute. And then we offer it for sale. So we list it on our website just at a list price, just like a regular real estate deal. And the list price might be $3,000, it might be $20,000. Just like in a regular real estate deal, it depends on the marketability of the area, the condition of the house, and how much work needs to be done to it. We usually offer it for about 2 weeks. And how that works is we have a email distribution list that you can go to our website and ask for your email to be added to the distribution. So you'll get an email every time we have a property to be offered. And you can also look at our website. They're posted there. We usually offer somewhere around 2 properties a month. And I'll explain that also in a minute. If you want to look in this case, unlike in Susie's program, you can get in, you can kick the tires, you have that, you can see that inspection list, you know what's going to be required, you know what we're going to ask you to do, you know all of that up front. You can take your contractors in if you have contractors. You can go through and determine what needs to be done to this property. It has a lot lower risk. It tends to have a higher price, but it has a lot lower risk, okay? And then you make an offer. If you want to get, wait, I need to back up. If you want to get in to see the house, we have a liability waiver form that's available on our website, and you return that to us with a copy of a photo ID, so that if you fall through a floorboard, you could sue us, but we prefer that you didn't. But that it's a liability waiver. So because these are abandoned houses, some of them are pretty yucky. And then we give you a lockbox code, and you can go back at your leisure. If you take contractors in, or family members, or whoever you take in with you, has to sign the liability form as well. So that needs to be made clear. So you look at it and you decide, yeah, I can do something with this. It's going to cost me XYZ to do the renovations that they're requiring. So that means I can afford, it's in an area that's a $40,000 neighborhood. That means I can afford to pay, $10,000. I'm going to offer $10,000. It's kind of like an auction, but it's not really, because we just take offers and tell a date. And then at the end of that offer period, we review the offers. We usually take the highest offer. There are occasions, and it says in the paperwork, that we don't have to take the highest offer. And the reason that we do that is back to our mission, right? Because our mission is to improve the property. And if we've got someone who cannot show proof of funds, for example, clearly doesn't have the resources to do what needs to be done, we're not going to accept that bid. We're not going to accept that offer. We do give preference to owner occupancy, but only if they're a qualified applicant, only if there's somebody who has proof of funds that can say, yeah, I've got the money to buy it and I've got the money to renovate it, and fulfills the other requirements, the ones that Susie's already gone over with you, okay? Then there is a purchase agreement. Now, I warn you that the purchase agreement has some teeth in it. It's kind of draconian. And it scares a lot of people who haven't done this program with us yet, because the purchase agreement says you're going to pay us for the property, the $5,000 or the $10,000 or whatever the accepted offer is. And you're going to promise to do all of the things on that checklist. You've got a 6-month deadline. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do, we're holding the deed while you do that. That's why we have to have proof of funds, because you can't put a mortgage on it, because we're holding the deed. Now, again, what I will tell you is, the last thing that we want to do is to take the property. That's the last thing we want to do, and we have never done that. We have never had to do that. I've got a couple right now that I'm a little worried about, but the last thing we want to do is take that property. So we will grant extensions to the 6-month period, so long as we see progress. Okay, so if we go and you say, you know, we ended up having to replace a water supply line, and it's taken us a lot longer. We get that. That's not a problem. Or I've run into a permit I've run into a permit problem. You know, I'm having trouble getting, you know, the inspector out. That stuff happens. We all know that happens. That's fine. We frequently, we've never turned down someone who asked for an extension to date. So, again, as Susie said, the very last thing we want to do is to take the property. Yes, ma'am?
As an investor, you go in and do that, you renovate, you finish it in 6 months, or less, is there any requirement that as an investor then I couldn't turn around and sell it to someone else? Do you have any kind of restrictions on that?
No.
No, okay.
No, there's no restrictions on that. You know, we want to see the property improved, we want to see the taxes paid, we want to see it occupied. That's what we want. Whether that's you occupying it, or your renter occupying it, or you sell it to somebody who occupies it, that's all good.
Okay.
Okay? We're all good with that. Once you're done with the renovations, you call us, we take our checklist, we go through and say, yep, this is all done. Okay, and it takes about 2 weeks to get the deed transferred then. During that time, the land bank holds the insurance on the structure. The contract requires the buyer to get what I call builder's insurance. It's insurance on the improvements, on any tools that you have in there, any materials, and that sort of thing. Before we transfer the deed over to you at the end of the renovation period, we will ask you to pay for that insurance, that structure insurance during the renovation period. It's about somewhere between $50 and $60 a month. Because remember way back in the beginning when Susie said we want to be self-sustaining, we want to cover all our costs. We don't want to, you know, we're not out to make money, but we want the program to be self-sustaining. We don't want to lose money. Okay? This is the applicant qualifications. This is the same kind of qualifications that Susie went over. You can't own any property that's tax delinquent. You can't have any current code or nuisance violations. You can't have been the subject of any foreclosure or bankruptcy proceedings. And you have to demonstrate the financial capacity to pay for the property and to perform the work required to set up utility accounts and to obtain insurance. We will ask for proof of funds. Yes, ma'am.
On the first one, on the tax delinquency, does that mean you can't be making monthly payments for the tax, for back taxes?
We would prefer not. But if the treasurer's office, if you're making payment, if you have on a payment plan, and you are making the payments, and you have not missed a single payment, the treasurer's office does not consider that to be tax delinquent, and neither do we. So we don't like it.
This is one instance where our programs are different because we are a little more rigid with that. Because we look at it as if you owe back taxes, regardless if you're making a payment, you still owe back taxes. Sue's a little more forgiving than I am.
Well, and the reason that is because we have the contract, and we can enforce the contract and make sure that you improve that property. And in this one, in her, it's a lot harder. The reverter deed is a last resort, and that is not, and it's harder to enforce. Our contract says, we'll take the property back, we'll keep your money, and we'll keep all the improvements. So I can be a little bit more forgiving because I have more teeth in my contract. Yes, sir.
I don't know if it would make any difference, but I think one of the reasons that question comes up is because occasionally people have the opportunity to buy a property that is encumbered with taxes, and it's not behind because of them. They're taking over, improving it, and they worked out that payment plan as part of the structured deal.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
And in those instances, I will recognize that and say, yep, you're fine. Because if you're paying off somebody else's encumbrances, that's fine, that's great. It's if you've fallen behind or never paid your taxes and then are on a payment plan, that's when I have a little bit of a problem.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure.
Yeah, we understand that does happen, and we see it rather frequently when that happens, especially in this market now that investors are back to the market again. So this is the fun part, at least for me, because it's all about me. These are the before and afters. So this is property in Belmont. It took him about 8 months to complete this. He ran into a few issues. He purchased it for $15,000. He put about $20,000 into it. He rented it within 2 weeks of getting the deed and rented it for $800 a month. And we returned it back to the tax roll within 11 months. So.
Do you happen to know what the square footage, number of bedrooms in that is?
That is a 2-bedroom.
2-bedroom?
2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's about 800 square feet.
Okay.
What would be the fair market value?
It's little, but it's really nice.
Fair market value?
I'm sorry?
Fair market value of that house?
I don't know. The market value in that neighborhood is probably around 50, 55. It's Belmont. And, my experience, and you guys probably know this more than I do, but Belmont's a hot area for us.
Yes.
There's a lot of demand in there. So and that one's completely redone, but it's only a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So if it had another bedroom, I would think you could get 64 easy, but it's only a 2-bedroom. And I think that's why you decided to rent it instead of sell it. This is another one. This is in Huber Heights. It was lovely. That's after we cleaned out all the crap in it, the top picture there. The purchase price was $20,600. I think they probably put 50 into it easily. He said, when I asked him, he said around 50. They got a sale pending at $120,000 in Huber. So they did well. And we got that back on the tax roll within 13 months.
Nice.
This one's in Trotwood. It sold for only $7,200 because it was disgusting. And they put $35,000 into it. They're renting it. I have not been able to find out how much they're renting it for. I imagine it's not very much because I think they're renting it to a family member. This neighborhood, though, I put this neighborhood Again, I would put this neighborhood around 55. It's completely redone. And the street where it is a solid, it's solid. I mean, they're not Taj Mahals, but they're well kept. You know, it's a stable street. So he doesn't have a ton of equity in it, but he has a little bit. All right. You guys may or may not be interested in this, but we're going to go over it real quick anyway. What time is it, Susie?
It is 8:17.
8:17, okay. 15 minutes, maybe less. So Susie described the demolition program. And the demolition program is funded by federal dollars from the Treasury Department. And I won't go into all the details. The bottom line is that program's going away because the money's going away. We will still do demolition, but not on that scale. And as we consider what our future is without that program, we have talked about and piloted, what we call doing a pilot, another initiative to fulfill our mission and our objectives. And we call that Thriving Neighborhood Initiative, or T&I, because you have to have an acronym. Because if you don't have an acronym, you're thrown out of the governmental agency club. And the idea behind this is to layer efforts. The land bank is in the real estate business, but neighborhoods have more than just real estate issues. So our idea is to layer efforts with other organizations, maybe Rebuilding Together Dayton that will do owner-occupant, help with owner-occupant renovations. Like Susie was talking about, partnering with the municipality in which that neighborhood is located to invest in that neighborhood. We have talked to the Legal Aid Society to help people with estate planning so that when they die, you don't end up with a vacant abandoned property. To help with tax delinquency and getting people on payment plans. You know, they may be elderly and didn't, understand when they paid their tax, when they paid off their mortgage, they still have to pay taxes. And people genuinely don't know that. So it's a coordinated effort to have the highest possible impact in a neighborhood. It may also include demolition. The goal is to strengthen and stabilize challenged low and moderate income neighborhoods, to restore property values, encourage home improvements, increase market confidence, and inspire neighborhood pride. These are some of the neighborhoods that, the numbered neighborhoods where we're looking maybe at targeting. These are what we call tipping point neighborhoods. So these are neighborhoods that I'm trying to think of a tactful way to put it. Tact is not always my best thing. These are neighborhoods that if something isn't done to help them, they're going to fall off into the abyss. But they still are viable. They still have solid houses. They still have stable families. They still have reasonable employment rates. They're just challenged by the fact that a lot of these neighborhoods have experienced lower populations. So there's not the market to fill those properties anymore.
Is that slide anywhere that you can obtain?
I'm sorry, Miss?
Is that slide anywhere that you can obtain it?
I don't know, we have that somewhere?
It's on the internet. It's on the internet. I don't know that we can really, I don't know if we've ever shared that one. It's because honestly, it's not really where we're going, it's all the possibilities where we
Wait,
could go.
yeah, it's all the possibilities of where we're looking to go, but we're not there yet.
But honestly, but there's going to be one or two, so having that knowledge really isn't going to.
No, I'll tell you where, no, I can tell you where we're gonna go. I'll tell you where we're
Yeah,
gonna go. Yeah. So this is our pilot neighborhood. This is, where's the little, oh, I love this thing. So this is Gettysburg, this is 35, this is the VA, this is Germantown. Okay? This is Pineview. Anybody ever heard of Pineview? It's adorable, it's an adorable neighborhood. So the city, and this is this lake is call it Pineview Lake. Is it really? I don't remember if it is. But there used to be an amusement park over here. Up until the 60s. See, Marcia remembers. Yeah, the Lakeview Park. Yeah, it's the Lakeview. Yeah. So this is
Wasn't
that
it called
neighborhood.
Lakeside?
Now, the
Yeah.
city defines Pineview as this whole triangle right here. But the land bank, and by the way, the neighborhood association, defined it as just here. And the reason that the land bank did that, in addition to the fact that the neighborhood association that's how they define it, is the housing stock down here is really different than the housing stock over here. And so this was our pilot, this was our first shot at this. And so we decided, let's make it a pretty small area, and so that we can increase our chances of success. So the little black X's are the ones we're going to tear down. And then the ones that have the little water faucets, those are ones that we looked at, but they have active utilities, so we can't go after those. They're tax delinquent, but they have active utilities, so they're probably occupied. And those are the ones, see, that we'll say, we'll bring to the attention of the Legal Aid Society and have maybe them do a seminar or something to help those people get on payment plans. And then the yellow ones are people that are already on payment plans, and so on. There are, what are the ones we're going to do? Oh, the purple ones. So the purple ones, these are ones that the land bank has submitted for foreclosure, and we are going to get, and we are going to do the renovation. And we already did one. You know, this is not nearly as much fun. So the idea is that we put together a plan. Okay, what are the needs in this neighborhood, and then we put together partnerships or affiliations with people who will all come together and focus in this neighborhood. And by doing this, we're hoping to also encourage private investment, like y'all. You know, if you know that all this activity is going on in this neighborhood, maybe you'll be more interested, maybe you won't, but maybe you'll be more interested in investing in this area. Identify longer-term challenges and then coordinate resources, public investment, private investment, and social service report. So in the Pineview area, for example, citywide development was able to get some money from the AFL-CIO, and they put in a fishing dock, and they cleaned up the lake, because the lake's right off of 35, so it had a lot of trash. And they put in a parking lot for people, and the lake and they cleaned out it was all overgrown with honeysuckle, and now it's all cleaned up, and people are using it, and it's become a neighborhood asset. So this is the property that we renovated, okay? And it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot, 1960 era home. We put about $70,000 into it. Because it needs everything. And see, we can't do any of the work ourselves. We contract everything out. And we sold it for $55,000. And we knew we were gonna lose money, but we're a nonprofit, so that's our investment into the neighborhood. And what we're trying to do is,
Bring in
the
values.
the market in this area was $25 a square foot.
Wow.
Okay? You get this home in Kettering and you got $75 a square foot. So the idea that we wanted to do was to try to start to bump up those property values. So we knew we were gonna lose money. And you can see we had a new driveway, a new sidewalk, a new siding. The only thing we didn't do to this house was we didn't have to put in new windows, but we had to do everything else. And there was a 2-car garage in the backyard that didn't have a driveway to it. The driveway stopped, and about 12 feet later, there was the garage, and there was grass in between, and there was an elevation change. It was very strange. So we just tore that down, and that cost about $4,000. Anyway, we renovated it, and we sold it in less than 2 weeks at list price. And we call that a win, because that property sold for $60 a square foot in a neighborhood that's getting 25. So that was a very quick run through of the Friday neighborhood. We are going to go into the next, it looks like the next neighborhood we're going to go into is a neighborhood in Harrison Township. That doesn't mean that we're abandoning Pineview. We have acquired 2 more houses to do renovations. We are in the middle of doing spec bid on the renovations. And we are hoping to get, to do the same thing with those that we did with these. We are working very closely with the neighborhood association. This is a very active neighborhood association. They're a great group of people, and they're a lot of fun. And that's the kind of neighborhood that we want to go into that has ownership that's invested and engaged. The next neighborhood will be in Harrison between Riverside and Main Street, north of Wampler.
North of what?
North of Wampler. So this area, when we do thriving neighborhoods, we do a lot of boots on the ground. I mean, I have walked every single block of this neighborhood, and I have walked most of the blocks of the neighborhood we're going to do in Harrison Township. And I know that Harrison Township can be challenged, but there are pockets, and this is one of them, where the housing stock is solid. There's a higher than average owner occupancy rate. Not that it doesn't have challenges, because it certainly does, or we wouldn't be going there. But this is these are solid little brick homes. Again, they're 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And we'll be going in and doing the same thing, picking ones that need to be demolished and taking them down, and renovating some, and maybe doing some of our DIY program. So, anybody have any questions? That was fast. No?
Is that Riverdale? Is that the name of
It's called Castlewood.
the Castlewood?
Called Castlewood. We have not put out, you guys are the first to know that.
When were they built? About in the 50s, 40s, 60s?
When were they built? There are some that were built in the 40s. Probably, it's older. And the reason I think I haven't looked, we're just starting in there. We're just starting the process. And remember that anything we acquire, we're getting through tax foreclosure. So we haven't applied for anything yet. And so we're 18 months out
Okay.
of getting control of any property. Yeah.
Where's your funding come from?
So our funding comes from the payment of delinquent taxes. We call it DTAC money. So we are not funded out of the general fund of Montgomery County. We are an agent for the county, but we are not funded from the general fund. If you don't pay your taxes for a year, they become what is called certified delinquent. Once they are certified delinquent, then, and you go in and pay them, then the land bank gets 5% of that money. And that's how we're funded. That's our operating funds. The programs are intended to be self-sustaining. So we want the DIY program for itself. So when I get $10,000 for one that only cost me $5,000 to acquire and get on the market, there's one that's, 2 neighborhoods over that I got $7,000 in and I sold for $1,200 because it was that bad. So the programs are intended, but salaries, and the salaries are the most important thing. Salaries, and copiers, and paper, and salaries, and rent, and those kinds of things are paid through tech. There are 7 full-time people and 1 part-time person. Yeah.
Question going back to the tax foreclosure acquisition program. And this young lady down here started to touch on that, I think. How are you competing with the investors when you go into the sale? And then also, is there an advantage that we have working with the land bank versus just going to the tax sale ourselves and bidding?
When we take a property through foreclosure, it's expedited foreclosure. It does not go through the sheriff's sale.
Oh.
So we aren't competing.
Not competing with all the other back tax properties? Okay.
And what we are doing, because the market has changed so much, when we got started 4 years ago, soon as I started working there was this huge inventory of properties that needed to have something done with them. And anything we took to the treasurer to foreclose on them, they said, bring it on, let's do it. Now we take properties to the treasurer's office to say we want to foreclose on this, and they'll go, wait a minute, this has got some value. Let's run it through the sheriff's sale. So we don't get to do every one that we want to like we used to. And the reason is the market has recovered so well that there is a market. And you can go to sheriff's sale, the treasurer's office may be able to collect some taxes, and you've got that whole room full of people who want to buy them. And that's great. We're happy just to get the property repositioned.
Yeah, if there's a market for it, you don't need the land bank.
Sure.
You don't need us.
Right.
And we're good with that.
Yeah.
If that property's got a market and y'all are gonna take care of it, or the market's gonna take care of it, fabulous. But we're repositioning the ones that have the big tax delinquency, that have been vacant for a long time, that somebody needs incentive to take it on. And the incentive is, a lower risk because we've removed the encumbrances from the title, and you're getting it for well below, what you would expect to get a structure for.
I think when Sue was talking, somebody asked you a question about selling the house as soon as you got it renovated. And And she said, yep, go ahead, that's fine for DIY. I wanted to mention for the TFAP program, one of the differences is you are required to hold it a year because we don't ask a lot out of you as far as repairs. There's not much needed to get into it, and we want to discourage flippers from just buying a house, getting the deed, and selling it
Without doing it.
without doing anything to it.
Oh, without doing anything. Yeah.
So again, the difference is in the DIY program, we know that it's going to get improved because we have a contract that says so. And we're holding the deed. And in the case of TFAP, you know, the property's yours.
And there have been people who ignore that rule and sell a property right after they get it and maybe not make improvements or not. That's fine, you get to do that once and then you're not in the program.
But if you made all the improvements in
Made all
the
the
6
improvements,
months,
You still have to hold it a year.
you still have to hold it there.
Yes.
One question I have is that, I guess the reason why people flip properties is because they want to sell that property to someone who does want to renovate it. I mean, that's the whole idea of flipping, but in your experience, has it just not worked out that way, and is that why you don't like that?
We don't always see success with flippers. Again, the whole idea is that the property gets improved. It is not, it enhances the neighborhood instead of is a liability. And with flippers, that doesn't always happen.
Well, and
You haven't met people in this group, though.
I guess.
Well,
And I bet, and I'm going to say, the people, we know a few names in our head of people who've done a disservice to those of you in this room who are legitimate and want to do a good job. And unfortunately, we have to address, as it always is, the ones that cause the problems have to have the rules created to make sure they don't cause problems here.
yeah, and understand too that there is a public-facing element to this. So we're going to the public and the public schools and saying, we want you, as the land bank, we want you to forgive these taxes, take it through foreclosure and give up on the taxes. In exchange for getting an improved property that's going to have a higher tax value, presumably, later on. And if we sell it to someone who does not make any improvements, sells it and makes money off of it, that does not look, that does not look like we're fulfilling our mission. Even if it does end up getting improved, it's too far removed from the process for it to not be a problem. We're in the business of ensuring that property gets improved. And in your scenario, we have no control over that. We're control freaks and we don't like that.
So we're trying to understand something, correct, I think you said this, is that if the capitalist gets in this program, they buy it for $5,000, they sell it to someone for $10,000, that person puts $30,000 into it and sells it to a single-family residence for $40,000. The problem is the capitalist made money and that bothers people?
It bothers me because I would rather that $5,000 that you made on that go into the property.
But the person that wanted to do the renovation is just happy that I brought them a property so cheap so they could
I can sell it
renovate
to somebody who's going to make those improvements and then sell it to somebody in an improved condition, and you don't have, and that extra $5,000 has gone into the property and not into somebody's pocket that did nothing to improve that neighborhood.
Actually, I find that offensive because that is value. If I'll give you an example. I had someone pick up the phone and call me about a property I could buy, and I bought it, and I was happy with it, and now it has an owner who's going to take care of it. What is wrong with people making money? Because
There's
they
nothing
connect
wrong with
together.
people. There's nothing wrong with people making money. there's, in my head, I would rather that money go into improving the property in the neighborhood. Because I don't see the value of somebody buying it from us and then doing nothing to the property and flipping it and making a profit, and they've done nothing to enhance the property or the neighborhood.
Well, they're not flipping it, they're wholesaling, which is different. They're
Okay.
being a link between, and it doesn't work for your program. But say someone found a
I can
property and wholesale.
Yeah, and I can-
Because what happens is that the one who flips it actually puts the money into it and improves it and pushes equity up.
And that's
Doesn't have the
fine.
time to go search for the properties because they're busy doing
And that's fine.
the other work. So a wholesaler helps that, and that's what he's saying, but for your program, it doesn't.
Well, and you know what? Our program is not for everybody.
Right.
And it's not meant to be for everybody. And if it doesn't
Right.
work for you, I completely understand that. If that isn't, and it's not gonna work for everybody. It's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea. It's not gonna be a fit for everybody, and that's fine. We're kind of like a niche. And if you don't fit into that niche, that's okay.
Well, I applaud you for what you do because
Yeah.
Dayton and the surrounding area microwave really need some help in a lot of these neighborhoods. And that's
I'll tell
great.
you what, it's really gratifying. It's a lot of fun, it's really gratifying. We work hard. There are days where, I'm trooping through houses that are knee-deep in debris and fleas and bed bugs.
Most of us have been there.
I know you have. I know you have.
How do you gain access to them?
That's after we get them.
Okay, so your program, I get hybridized.
Yeah, I
They're both land-based programs.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's more than one way. Yeah.
I'll just take care of the ones that's outside of the city, right? Not the ones that's actually in Dayton.
I do my program in Dayton.
Where
Your program is-
TFAP program is like lot links. We leave lot links alone in the city, and then we go everywhere else in the county.
How do we get on your email list?
So I have business cards. You can email me, or
Okay.
you can go to our website.
What is your
And you
website?
can sign up on our website. There's a place to sign up on our website.
Go
What-
get properties.
I did sign up, but I.
Oh, is that what the
I think
website
it
is?
was
Okay.
that one she
yeah.
mentioned before.
GoGetProperties.com.
All right, yeah, well, websites are not always perfect, so just email me. My email's on there.
That's fine, I did once, or not did, sorry. I didn't really know
It's the
how
same,
much.
yeah.
Yeah,
We-
that's fine.
You know,
That's yours, okay.
we used
And
to
then
use the term
she's-
bid,
she
and we
has
used to
a picture.
use, the kinds of terms that you're talking about.
Thank you.
Carol can use more. But for some reason, people who are not as sophisticated as you guys, it kind of freaked them out. And I would get where nobody would make any offers. And so I stopped calling it bidding, and I started calling it offering. And I just started calling it, instead of minimum bid, I called it a list price. And suddenly, I got offers. Now, I can't explain that to you, but
That's all right.
that's why we.
Okay.
And with list price, then people feel free to go below it,
Right.
whereas minimum bid, they're like, well,
Right.
Because
Yeah, and
sometimes
it's-
we write the numbers from like,
Yeah.
I grabbed my numbers and I was like, oh.
Yeah, now, sometimes we don't get, sometimes we get more than our list price, and sometimes we get, less than our list price. And that's okay, the market is gonna,
You're seeding the neighborhood.
yeah, we're seeing, that's exactly right, we're seeing it, yes ma'am.
So since there's no minimum bid when you have them listed and available, you're just kind of blindly just,
You are doing the same thing you would in any other real estate deal. You're saying, it's worth X fixed up, I've got to put X into it, and I want this much return, so I can afford to offer Y. You're doing it like any other real estate deal. And if somebody can slice the cake differently and offer more, then, you know, that is Mr. Capitalism, that is capitalism.
And you did say when you make the offer and somebody else outbid you, then whatever money you would have put into it, then you lose? No, that's the other one.
No, it's-
No, this is.
I don't think you're collecting money until the,
You don't have anything in it.
Yeah, it's the other.
You have no money has exchanged hands.
Yeah.
Do we have examples of other land banks in the country that have been successful in seeding a neighborhood and then encouraging then investors like ourselves, as we see that the market will be increasing in that
Yeah, there are
neighborhood coming
tons of
in and helping with that increase?
Yeah, there are tons of them.
Okay, so which ones are you building off of? Whether like
You know,
you're talking-
Cuyahoga County was the first land bank in
Okay.
Ohio.
All right.
And they have a lot of success. They're, in Detroit. The Detroit Land Bank is doing a lot. They do have like an auction website that's far more sophisticated than ours, and it's really cool. And they've seeded a lot of neighborhoods and have a lot of neighborhoods that are starting to make a comeback. They're still very challenged.
Yes.
But they've made a lot of progress. Most of the land banks are in the center of the country, because, you know, the bookends, kind of, they recovered without help. But the center of the country didn't recover as well.
They worked in the car industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Ohio, there are 88 counties in Ohio, and I think at last count there were 53.
Something over 50 now.
53 land banks. And when the Montgomery County Land Bank was formed, we were what, the fifth? I think we were in the upper top of the first 10.
So sorry if I'm interrupting, so in a neighborhood, how many houses do you see or plant before you move on to the next in the hope of making a difference? What's the percentage? You want to do like 1% of houses, or you want to do?
In the thriving neighborhood communities where we're very focused in a single area, in the DIY program, we can be those houses can be anywhere in the county. But in the thriving neighborhood where we're doing more what you're calling seeding, we don't have a set number. We do analysis and research on that neighborhood to see what it needs, because every neighborhood is different. Like in Pineview, 12 houses need to come down. 12 houses out of 300 and some odd, they need to go. And that's 12 we can get control of. In the Castlewood area, I don't think we're going to have anywhere, it's a similar size neighborhood, I don't think we're going to have anywhere near that many that need to come down. So we may end up we want to do 4 renovations in Pineview. In Castlewood, we may end up doing, more than that. We may end up doing 5, 6, 7, because I don't think we're going to do as many demolitions there, because the housing stock doesn't call for it.
Some of the limitations we had in Pineview, we had planned to do 4 or 5 renovations, and when we got acquisition of the properties, some of the ones that we had sort of planned to do renovations in, one of them was so badly infested with termites, it's a demo. So we had, we're encumbered by what we discover when we get the properties. Our plans change when our discoveries are made of what's, as you know, what's surprises lie ahead when you buy property.
Yeah, it was not structurally sound. It was so badly damaged by termites that it was not structurally sound. And, you know, the one that was structurally sound, we still spent, you know, $65,000, $70,000 on that one, so we couldn't.
What's a structurally sound?
It was, no, it was,
Yeah.
because again, the one that was all eaten by termites, the roof trusses and everything, I mean, you bet, you know, it wouldn't hold your weight. It was awful, yeah.
That Castlewood, where did you say this at? Castlewood?
It's between Maine and Riverside and Wampler and Nottingham
In Harrison Township.
Okay,
in
yeah.
Harrison Township. And there's a street in there called Castlewood. We're looking very strongly at that neighborhood. We haven't gotten all our ducks in a row. We don't have a 100% commitment from our board yet, but we're looking very strongly in that neighborhood.
Is it a lot of apartments or something there?
Not in there, no.
There's adjacent to that neighborhood, there's.
Yeah, there's on the perimeter, just outside the perimeter there are. But,
What's the cutoff street on the triangle for the Lakeview property?
so this, so where's my magic thing? Mount Clair.
That's it. It's on the east side. For Pine Tree?
Yeah,
For the Lakeview.
so this is Lakeview right here. Lakeside is right here. Gettysburg, Germantown, Mount Clair.
One reason that's where the, right here, the neighborhood finds itself. There's a big hill right there, and when you go down from the lower part, the housing office who mentioned changes, it's just like a different neighborhood.
It really is.
Geographically, it's sort of.
The houses through in these streets, this is called Burwood, Blanche, and Groveland, and Dearborn. This is much, much older housing stock, and it's in much worse condition. Poor Blanche, I think there might be 2 houses on this block that are decent houses, and the rest of them are not good.
Yeah, that was a park right there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one of the things that attracted us to this neighborhood is, you know, it's in close proximity to downtown. It's in close proximity to an employment center, you know, the VA hospital. It's got a natural amenity. It's got an active neighborhood association. So that's one of the things that really, especially for our first try at it, we wanted the best chance of success.
Are there any other questions?
Now, one thing. When you first started and you would acquire these homes, you used to have open houses that you would come to and look through them.
In the DIY program, yeah, we did. Not in this.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
In the DIY program, we did. And, yeah, I stopped doing that when it became winter time.
Oh.
And I didn't want to sit in an open, vacant, abandoned, no heat house for 4 hours while people trooped through it. And so we came up with the lockbox idea and the liability waiver idea. Because, yeah, I'm not doing that, I'm too old for that.
There's no other questions. We appreciate your time. I think we've answered your questions and got the wheels turning. So